Usually, whenever we're getting close to an exit, there will be a panel with one or more diagonal arrows pointing in the direction of the exit. Sometimes the arrows are vertical and point down to the lane you have to be on to exit. And if you see the words exit only, sometimes on a yellow stripe like this, that means that the lane to which the arrow is pointing is reserved only for exiting. And sometimes there will also be the word exit and the exit number. In countries where you drive on the right, almost all exits are to the right. There are a few to the left, but they're very rare and they tend to be mostly on urban highways. I won't go into too much detail on panels in this video. I'll do that in the next one, and I'll also talk about highway conventions such as numbering, directions, and so on. One of the most frequent mistakes students make is that they wait too long before starting to position themselves in the appropriate lane to exit. Keep in mind that when you're driving at the maximum highway speed, which is usually around 100 kilometers per hour, 120 or 130 in some countries, 1 kilometer will come pretty quickly. At 100 kilometers per hour, driving 1 kilometer will take 36 seconds, so 500 meters will take 18 seconds. Now that might seem like plenty of time for experienced drivers, but not necessarily for beginners, especially when you factor in heavy traffic and the stress of changing lanes at a higher speed. So as soon as you see the indication to the exit you want to take, start making the necessary lane changes. In an example like this, 2.5 kilometers, you don't need to rush things. You'll still have about 1.5 minutes at 100 kilometers per hour. But at shorter distances, like 500 meters here, do it as soon as possible after you see the panel. Then put your turn signal before exiting, and even if you're already in the right lane and to your right it's the shoulder, I still recommend you do your verifications to the right. There are some people who drive on the shoulder sometimes, even if it's forbidden to do so. That usually doesn't happen at normal speed, but when traffic is slow and heavy, sometimes people cheat by using the shoulder. Emergency vehicles can also use it sometimes since it's empty. They'll generally have their sirens blasting, but if you have music playing in the vehicle, you might not hear them. And make sure that as soon as the line becomes dashed, get into the lane. If not, someone can do it before you. I explained this in my first video on merging, the same applies when exiting. In this situation, I want to go take Highway 40, so for now, I'm in the appropriate lane. But since I see 2 arrows here, that means that one lane will probably be to go to this direction, the highway, and another one will be to exit to this street. But right now, I don't know yet which lane I have to be on. Now a bit further away, there are 2 other panels indicating which lane goes to which direction. So I should change lanes as quickly as possible to the left, because right after that, there's this solid line that prevents me from doing so. Because I didn't change lanes as soon as I had the chance to do it, now I can't go on the highway anymore. So this is another example of the importance of positioning ourselves in advance whenever we see the panels indicating the directions. Now something else you'll need to be careful about when going from a highway to a service road or city street is speed. Service roads almost always have lower maximum speeds than highways. And that's what this panel indicates, that we're approaching a zone with a lower maximum speed than the one where we are now. And when you've been driving on the highway for a while, you get used to the speed at which you're going. So it becomes kind of hard to slow down enough because your brain adapted to the higher speed. As you can see by looking at the speed these people are still going in on this service road. So be careful to adjust your speed, both for road safety and your wallet safety. And I think this guy might just have had a problem with one of those two. It's especially hard to adapt when you're going from 100 to a drastically lower speed, like 50 in this case. So whenever approaching the service road or street, start reducing your speed gradually until you get to the appropriate one when entering the road in question. Don't hesitate to use your brakes here. Just letting go of the accelerator won't be enough in a lot of cases. Also be aware of this when the exit is a downhill slope, because in that case, besides the effect of your brain having to adapt to a lower speed, your speed will also increase because of the law of gravity. In other words, if you don't respect the law of gravity, you might have to face the gravity of the law. So get on the brakes if necessary and check your speedometer. And sometimes you'll exit the highway directly into a city street where the maximum speed is usually 50. In this case, there's an intermediary maximum speed of 70 between 100 on the highway and 50 in the city. Basically, The purpose of this is to make you slow down gradually as you approach the city street. Sometimes we exit a highway and the street we want to go into is too close to the exit, which makes it very difficult to take it right after exiting, especially if we need to do several lane changes and the traffic is heavy. And in situations like this one, a downhill slope, on top of that there's a wall blocking our view, so we can't anticipate our moves in advance because we won't see the vehicles on the street below. Here's the ramp for the main street and it's too close to the exit. Right now it's blocked because of construction, but even when it's open, the best option is to go a street or more further away and do a detour by the right. So instead of doing this, we go as far as we need to go to do it safely. Since it's in the city, there are usually a lot of streets nearby, so no matter how many streets further away we need to go, it shouldn't be a very long detour. So in this case, my best option was to do the detour by the right. In this case, I want to take this main street towards that direction, so my best option is to do a detour by the left, since I'll only need to circle around these pillars that support the highway and I'm on the direction that I want to go. I do this. If you know the zone already, then you probably already know which side is the best one to do the detour. If you don't, but you know where you're going in advance, then you can use Google Maps to inspect the zone, like I showed in my previous video. Think of it this way. You'd rather take 3 or 4 minutes more to do a detour, 5, 6, whatever, than get into a collision and waste an hour or more, hundreds of dollars, and maybe even get injured. Changing lanes in situations like these is difficult even for experienced drivers, so just save yourself the stress. Now just a side note, for you eagle-eyed people out there, you probably noticed that I turned from the first lane here into the second lane here. We're usually supposed to turn into the first available lane, but this case is an exception, which I'll talk about in more detail in a future series of videos about intersections. In the next video, like I mentioned earlier, I'll talk about highway panels and conventions. So stay tuned and see you soon.